Topic 2, business management. This is the first video in a series of videos I'm doing for this topic of business management. And first up, we look at features of effective management, and in particular, what is the definition of management. So we've got the traditional definition of management, which is the process of coordinating a business's resources to achieve its goals. Now, there's four main resources that can be used in the process of achieving goals, and they are human resources, information resources, so things that give information, physical resources, so the things that are actually in the office or the equipment that is used in the production process, and financial resources, which is the money that comes in. The contemporary definition of management is the idea that we're working with and through others to achieve the goals of the business, getting the most out of limited resources, balancing efficiency and effectiveness, so being quick but also being effective with quality, and coping with a rapidly changing environment. So that's the more contemporary definition of management. And when we talked about this earlier, in the term, traditional definition is kind of the original definition, and the contemporary is kind of a newer, more modern look at business when you take into consideration what's happening now. And look at it, it's got the coping with change, the rapidly changing technological environment, achieving the goals of the business, working with and through others, so with people, not just making decisions yourself, and being efficient and effective. And looking at effective management, we need to look at what an effective manager needs to be good at. So an effective manager needs to be able to plan, organise, lead and control. So planning is the preparation of a predetermined course of action. Organising is turning these plans into actual actions. Leading is influencing or motivating people to actually do those things. And controlling is evaluating the performance and then taking corrective action. So checking how people are going, and if they're not going very well, fixing it. If they're going well, continuing to motivate them to do what they're doing well. Another important aspect of being an effective manager is the skills or the personal skills that a manager has. And those include interpersonal skills, which is the manager's ability to be able to deal or liaise with people and build positive relationships with their staff. Communication is also important. Managers use communication skills when explaining the vision, outlining changes, or letting staff know what is expected of them. There are many different forms of communication as well. So you can have the manager coming to talk to you in person, sending memos, sending emails, all sorts of stuff, but communication is important. Vision skills, which is a strategic planning idea developed by the senior management to identify long-term goals for the business. So vision skills are about strategic plans, which are long plans, 10 to 15 years, and the senior management are able to see those big picture plans and long-term plans. Problem-solving skills are also needed as a manager, finding and then implementing a course of action to correct unworkable situations. There might be several alternatives, so finding the best one is also important. And decision-making skills are also important, which is the process of identifying options available and then choosing a specific course of action to solve the specific problems. Another management or manager's personal skills is flexibility and adaptability to change. That's very important in the contemporary definition of management. So successful managers are those who anticipate and adjust to changing circumstances. Unfamiliar and unexpected circumstances are the norm in a business, so you need to be able to foresee them and then do things to get through them and change in the way that you need to change so that your business stays effective and efficient. One thing about being an effective manager and managing a business effectively is that you understand your stakeholders. So remember, stakeholders are those people who have an interest or they interact with the business. They include things like employees, shareholders who are owners, management, customers, the broader community, and suppliers. They are some of the stakeholders that have an interest in the business, that the business must know how to keep these people happy and to keep these people supportive of the business. And in the next slide, you'll see that they have conflicting interests. So the business and the managers need to make decisions about how to best balance those needs and wants from the different stakeholders. So as I said, there's conflicting interests with stakeholders, and they need to be managed effectively. So society increasingly expects businesses to accept responsibility and accountability toward all stakeholders for the promotion and management of change. Businesses are expected to be enterprising, to comply with the law, and be socially and ecologically sustainable in all operations. Now, all stakeholders require something different from the business, expect different things, and so here's some examples of how they might differ. So employees versus shareholders. Employees need good pay, safe conditions, but that may impact the profit and dividends, which impacts the shareholders. Managers and customers. Rising prices to maintain a profit may impact the customers' expectations on lower prices. So managers want to get better profits, customers want cheaper prices. Management and the community. Management might cut costs by neglecting maintenance, which may impact the community's safety. Or maybe managers might want to do something that's not environmentally friendly to save money, and then that impacts the community that they're part of. Suppliers and the broader community. Suppliers expect to be paid promptly, but that might reduce costs by acting unethically or socially irresponsible, which would then impact the broader community. So there's some examples of conflicting interests. So strategies that can help reconcile conflicting interests of stakeholders. Okay, many businesses focus on the triple bottom line. So that's an important terminology that you need to know. That includes looking after the economy, the environment, and the social performance. So the triple bottom line is economy, environment, and social performance. Customers who believe that a business has a reputation for being socially responsible are more likely to interact with the business. So that's an important thing to do to help with reconciling conflicting interests. Customers increasingly expect businesses to consider corporate social responsibility and to act ethically and sometimes above the law. So for a business to act ethically, that is often means that the business needs to act above the law. So the law sometimes doesn't state exactly what should be done in some situations, and so the business needs to think about what's ethically right and what people would expect of it, and try to do that to keep people happy. Now, 3 possible ways a business can reconcile conflicting interests. So some examples of what could be done. So you could do a share acquisition scheme, which is where you give employees a share of the ownership of the business. So you actually sell them shares, which means they are then owners of the business as well as employees. So they're actually 2 stakeholders, and so they will kind of be forced to kind of reconcile their interests kind of within themselves. And also training and professional development of employees is also important, and stakeholder engagement. So actually sharing information with and seeking input from stakeholders during processes that are happening with the business is also an important strategy. So keeping stakeholders well informed. So looking at achieving business goals, so business goals are very important for a business. So we have the strategic goals, which are the long-term goals, but then we have shorter-term goals as well. So achieving business goals, carefully prepared goals begin with the end in mind. So when you are creating goals as a business, you tend to think of what you want in the end and then work backwards. They serve as targets, so targets are where to get to. They serve as measuring sticks, so you can use them to work out how well you're going towards your goal. So you can look at where you are at the moment and go, okay, well, we're not at the goal yet, we're maybe halfway, so they become measuring sticks. They also help to motivate employees because people can see what they're working towards and they want to achieve the goal, and they encourage commitment from the team for that same reason. Okay, now when you're making goals, they need to be SMART. So SMART goals. So this is an important acronym that you need to know. So SMART, specific. They need to say exactly what the goal is. They need to be measurable, so they can be measured and compared. So you can say, oh yeah, we have achieved it yet, or we haven't achieved it. They need to be attainable, so they actually need to be doable and not impossible. They need to be relevant, so the goals need to be worthwhile, so people know that they're kind of worthwhile kind of working towards. And they need to be time bound, so they need to have time frames. So you say this needs to be done within 3 months, 9 months, a year, or whatever. But time bound means that people don't just kind of rest on their laurels and just do it really slowly. They have a time limit that they need to do it by. Now, continuing on with achieving business goals. So business goals allow for clearly defined purposes and things to aspire towards. Now, the goals can be established in the following areas. So there's a number of different areas that you can create goals for. And the thing is that these areas are interdependent, and a goal in one area may impact another area. That's what interdependent means. And so sometimes a positive goal in one area may impact negatively on another. So you need to get that balance right. So the first area is profit. So that is what is left over after taking out costs of producing and supplying the product, so the expenses. It's a major indicator of success, the size of the profit is. So profit maximization is an important term that you need to know, and this is when there is a maximum difference between the total revenue and total costs. So total revenue increases and total costs decrease. So profit maximization is trying to get sell as much at as high a price as you can, and decreasing the total cost is trying to lower your expenses as low as you can, so that you have that big buffer in the middle, which you can say is the profit. Okay, so that's profit maximization. Now remember, profit is equal to the total revenue minus the total costs. So that is where profit goals come into it. Market share goals refer to the business's share of total industry. It's represented as a percentage. An increase in the market share suggests the business is doing well. So you might have a 10% share in the market that you're in, and you might increase that market share to 15%, and that is a good sign. So continuing on with achieving business goals. So another goal area is in growth. So it can happen internally, which is employing more people, increasing sales, introducing innovative products, purchasing more equipment, and establishing more outlets. Or externally, which is by merging with or acquiring another business. So that's how growth can happen, externally by going with another business, or internally with more employees, increasing sales, innovative products, that kind of stuff. Another area for goals is share price, which is a part ownership. So usually we talk about shareholders being part owners of a public company. It can also be, shareholders can also be in private companies, but the private companies actually make decisions on who can be shareholders in there, whereas public companies go onto the stock exchange and anyone can buy shares in their businesses. So maintaining high share price helps avoid vulnerability of the business and keep shareholders happy. Shareholders usually purchase shares for dividends, so to get company profits, or to see their shares grow in value. So a share price goal can be to see the share price increase, or to get good dividends to its shareholders, so which is the company profits. Okay. Also about share prices, if a share price goes up, that is a sign that the business is going well, and it's kind of like a future prediction that the business is going well. And it also helps if the business wants to borrow money, if the share price is high, banks are more likely to be willing to lend money because they know that the business has a good forecast. And more types of business goals. So you can have social goals. So businesses are responsible to people and society in general, as activities can have an impact on quality of life. So social goals could include things like improving the quality of work life for the employees, supporting cultural diversity, promoting human rights, supporting charities, social justice issues, supporting them and kind of sticking up for them. They are some things that are social goals that businesses need to think of. And second last goal is environmental goals. So ecologically sustainable businesses use production methods that do not limit the ability of future generations to satisfy their needs and wants. So environmental goals are also important. They are another part of a business's goals. And sorry, that was the last one. So when it comes to all those goals, achieving a mixture of those goals is very important. So the goals are interdependent, and therefore some goals can be contradictory to one another. A business needs to try and satisfy all goals as best as it can, and then it is more likely to be successful. This takes critical thinking, so you need to think out of the square and go, okay, well, if I increase in this way, I'm going to decrease in this way. How do I make sure that I kind of balance it all out? Now moving on to staff involvement, which is another important aspect of a business, getting the staff involved and involved successfully. So staff involvement can be known as employee empowerment, involving employees in decision-making processes. Staff involvement is a kind of decentralization that allows employees some authority in decision-making. So when we say decentralize, that means that you're taking the decision-making away from management or managers and allowing employees to have some decision-making skills. That's what decentralization means. It is important to recognize the importance of innovation, motivation, mentoring, and training with staff involvement. So these are important terms you need to know, and they affect staff involvement. So innovation are when people who are innovative are known as entrepreneurs. They think up creative ways of doing things, building things, and making creative things. Innovative ideas need to be rewarded and encouraged in a business. So innovation needs to be encouraged so that you can come up with really good ideas for the business. Mentoring is also important. That is tutoring, coaching, or modeling acceptable behaviors. A mentor acts as a role model. Mentoring allows for skills transfer, which is where one person is able to give their skill set or show their skill set to another person. It provides on-job support and training, and employees have access to help at all times because the mentor is kind of always around. And motivation of staff is also important, results in high levels of productivity, and there's different types of motivation. So we can have, you can motivate people by delegating responsibility, taking interest in employees' development, providing a safe work environment, establishing joint objectives through negotiations, making clear expectations, give recognition and appreciation, communicate regularly with staff, lead by example, encourage suggestions, implement conflict resolution strategies. They are some tips for how to motivate and keep your staff. And the final aspect of staff involvement is with training. So new employees need to be trained so that they know what to do. Older employees need to be trained so they can continue to keep up with changes in the business and the business environment. So training is very crucial for staff involvement as well. So in summary, we have innovation, mentoring, motivation, and training, which are important aspects for staff involvement.